The alien court was unlike anything Leora had ever seen. Towering crystal pillars stretched high above, catching the light from the glowing orbs that floated like moons in the vast chamber. The air vibrated with a low hum, a sound that seemed alive, wrapping around her like a living being. Everywhere she looked, aliens moved with grace and purpose, their many limbs flowing in patterns she could barely follow. Some had scales that shimmered like liquid metal. Others had eyes that reflected colors she had no names for. The sheer size of the court made her feel small, almost fragile, and yet she stepped forward. Forcing her chest to rise with confidence she was only beginning to feel. "I am Leora," she said, her voice echoing in the grand hall. "I bring a claim before your court." Immediately, all eyes turned to her. Compound eyes, multifaceted and glimmering, studied her from every angle. Whispers traveled across the room in strange musical tones, rising and falling like wind over a canyon. Leora could feel their judgment before it even touched her ears. She swallowed hard, steadying herself. Her hands were clammy, but she did not tremble. Not yet. A towering figure stepped forward, its skin like polished obsidian and wings folded neatly behind its back. It was the queen, ruler of this alien world, and her presence alone seemed to bend the light around her. "Speak, human," she said. Her voice was soft but carried an undeniable authority. "Tell us why you have come." Leora took a deep breath, feeling the weight of centuries of doubt and disbelief pressing against her shoulders. I am Barren," she said, lowering her eyes. The words felt heavier than she imagined, but she spoke them aloud anyway. "And yet, I have been chosen to bring a miracle to your world." For a long moment, the court was silent. Then came the laughter. It was sharp, metallic, almost cruel. It cut through the quiet like shards of glass, echoing against the crystal walls. Leora's ears burned, and her heart sank for a fraction of a second. The aliens were enormous, ancient, and powerful, and here she was a fragile human standing alone in a hall built for beings who had lived for centuries. "You?" One of the council members sneered, its voice layered with different pitches that made it almost impossible for a human to mimic. "You, a human, claim to bring a miracle? You are barren, weak, fragile. How dare you step into this court and speak of hope?" The queen tilted her head slightly, studying her. "Why should we listen to you? Humans fail even in survival. You are small, short-lived, and fragile. And yet you bring this claim?" Leora felt the sting of shame, but it was quickly replaced by a strange, fiery determination. The laughter and mockery did not break her, they only made her resolve stronger. She lifted her chin and let her voice grow steadier. "I know what I am," she said softly. "I know my weaknesses. But within me, there is a life that refuses to obey doubt. There's a spark that can grow if you will only let it. You may laugh, you may doubt me, but I will not step down. I will show you what humans can do." The court fell silent again, sensing the strength behind her small, trembling frame. Even the queen paused, her head tilting curiously. Leora's words carried no weapons, no threats, yet they felt heavier than the sharpest blade. There was power in hope. There was courage in the fragile. There was something in humanity that even this ancient alien court could not measure with their science, their eyes, or their centuries of experience. Leora took one more step forward, letting her resolve echo through the grand hall. She did not yet know how she would succeed. She did not yet know how she would turn disbelief into awe. But she knew one thing: even if the court laughed, even if they dismissed her as fragile and insignificant, she would not leave. She would stay. She would fight with patience, courage, and hope. And one day, she would return to this hall with proof of the impossible. For now, all she could do was stand there, alone but unbroken, and let the alien court stare at her. Let them laugh. She would carry the miracle within her, and in time, they would have no choice but to see it. The alien court did not forget Leora's words. In fact, they lingered in the air like a bitter scent, twisting and turning in the minds of the council members. For days they watched her closely, their many eyes following every step, every blink, every subtle gesture. Leora felt the weight of their scrutiny pressing down on her like a mountain, yet she refused to flinch. She had come here not to prove her strength in battle, not to wield power over others, but to prove something far harder, that hope in life could defy expectation. The queen called for a meeting of the council, and Leora was summoned once again. As she entered the chamber, a chorus of alien voices hummed with amusement and disbelief. "We must understand," one council member said, its tone dripping with mockery, "how a human weak and short-lived can bear what centuries of our science could not. Leora lifted her chin, letting her gaze sweep across the hall. Every alien looked at her with judgment, many with ridicule, but she met each stare with quiet strength. "I do not know your science," she said softly, "and I do not know why you have waited so long for what I carry. But I know this. Life finds a way, even in the smallest and most fragile of forms." The court erupted in laughter. The sound rolled through the crystal walls, cold and sharp, echoing as if mocking her very heartbeat. Some of the younger aliens whispered to each other, their tones filled with curiosity and disbelief, while the elders shook their heads in amusement. "You speak of miracles." "Human," the queen said, her voice calm but carrying a weight that made the chamber tremble. "Yet your species fails every day. You are fragile. You are weak. And you claim to hold the light of our future within you." Leora's stomach tightened, but she did not let her fear show. She remembered the quiet warmth inside her, the tiny spark that refused to die despite doubt and mockery. She placed a hand lightly on her stomach, feeling the life she carried. It was small, almost imperceptible, yet it pulsed with a rhythm that no alien court could ignore. "I do not ask for your approval," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I do not ask for your belief. But I will not allow your laughter to define what is possible. You may see weakness, but I see life. You may see failure, but I see hope. And one day, you will see the truth for yourselves." The laughter softened slightly, replaced with uneasy murmurs. Some of the council members tilted their heads, curious despite themselves. They had never heard a human speak with such quiet confidence, such subtle defiance. Fragile creatures, yes. Short-lived, yes. But unyielding? They had underestimated that dot. As the days passed, Leora returned to her quarters, walking through the glittering halls with careful steps. She listened to the alien gossip as she passed, whispers of doubt, amusement, and even curiosity. But she did not let it touch her heart. She spent her nights in meditation, learning to connect with the spark inside her, nurturing it with patience and hope. Every breath, every quiet thought, strengthened the bond between her and the life growing within. Even in isolation, Leora felt the court's gaze. She could sense their skepticism and their doubt, but she also sensed something else, something faint and fragile, like the first light of dawn. A hint of wonder, curiosity, a seed of belief that they did not yet realize had been planted. She smiled softly to herself one night, closing her eyes. "I will not fail," she whispered. "I will show them that the impossible is possible. I will carry this life, and I will carry their respect. And when the time comes, they will see that humanity is not to be underestimated." The court could laugh. They could mock. They could try to dismiss her. But Leora knew the truth. She was not alone. She had the spark of life within her. And that spark was stronger than any doubt, stronger than any ridicule, and stronger than anything this alien court had ever faced. And somewhere deep inside, she felt the first stirring of what would one day become the miracle dot after another day of ridicule in the alien court. Leora stepped out into the palace gardens, seeking a quiet place where she could think, breathe, and connect with the life she carried. The gardens were unlike anything she had ever seen. Plants glowed softly with colors she could not name, and the air shimmered with tiny floating motes of light. It was peaceful here, away from the judgmental eyes of the court, a sanctuary where she could feel the pulse of hope growing inside her. She sat on a smooth stone bench and closed her eyes. She placed both hands gently on her stomach, feeling the warmth and subtle rhythm of the life within. It was small, fragile, but undeniably alive. Leora whispered softly, her voice barely louder than the hum of the gardens. "I see you. I feel you. We are together in this, and we will grow stronger, no matter what they say." The nights became her teacher. She learned to meditate, to listen, to breathe in a way that connected her own strength with the spark she carried. Every thought of doubt she replaced with hope. Every fear she replaced with determination. The mockery of the alien court, their sharp laughter and skeptical glances, no longer weighed on her as heavily. She realized that her strength did not come from their approval. It came from the quiet love she nurtured for the life within her dot. As she meditated, the garden seemed to respond. The glowing plants shimmered brighter, the air grew warmer, and even the distant humming of the palace walls sounded softer, almost protective. Leora felt a connection she could not explain, as if the universe itself was listening, supporting her. The spark inside her seemed to pulse in rhythm with the world around her. Even during the day, she found moments of peace. When the younger aliens approached her in secret, curious about the human who claimed to carry a miracle, she welcomed their questions. She did not scold them for their skepticism. Instead, she shared her calm and quiet strength. She taught them that life, no matter how small or fragile, deserved care and belief. Slowly, some of them began to see beyond the court's prejudice. They saw a human who refused to give up, who nurtured life with love and patience rather than power or dominance. But not all eyes were kind. The elders still watched with suspicion, waiting for her to fail, certain that the spark she carried would fade. Leora felt their judgment, but she did not allow it to enter her heart. Every time doubt threatened to creep in, she placed her hands over her stomach and remembered the warmth. The quiet pulse that no alien could ever mock or measure. "I may be small," she whispered to the life within her, "but together we are stronger than anyone thinks. They may laugh, they may doubt, but we will prove that hope cannot be destroyed. We will grow, and one day they will see what humans are truly capable of." The days turned into weeks. Each morning, she greeted the life inside her with gentle words. Each night, she meditated, letting the quiet strength of her human heart merge with the spark of possibility she carried. Slowly, imperceptibly, she felt a change not just within herself, but in the way the court and the palace seemed to notice her. The younger aliens spoke more softly when they saw her, some even beginning to whisper of wonder rather than ridicule. Leora knew the journey was far from over. The court still doubted, still laughed in hidden corners. But she also knew something else. Miracles are not born from strength or power alone. They are born from patience, from courage, from love that refuses to bow to fear. And Leora, fragile as she seemed, had all of that as she sat beneath the glowing trees. Placing her hands over her stomach once more, she felt a wave of quiet certainty. The spark within her was alive, and it would grow. One day, the alien court would have no choice but to see the impossible made real through a human who refused to surrender. And the life she carried against all odds. The morning sunlight streamed through the high, crystal windows of the alien court, painting the chamber with soft, prismatic colors. Leora walked steadily into the hall, her hands resting lightly on her stomach. She could feel it, the tiny pulse of life growing within her. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, yet stronger than any doubt or ridicule the court could cast. The council members were already gathered, their towering forms casting long shadows on the polished floor. Whispers traveled through the chamber like a current, thick with skepticism and curiosity. "The human returns," one said, a hint of amusement in its voice. "Does she still claim to carry what is impossible?" Leora lifted her chin. "I do," she said, her voice calm and steady. "And I ask you to see the first sign today." The queen leaned forward, her many eyes glinting with curiosity. "Show us," she commanded. Her voice carried a weight that seemed to make the walls themselves vibrate. The other council members leaned in, their laughter from past days now tempered with anticipation. Leora took a deep breath and placed both hands over her stomach, closing her eyes for a moment. She felt the life within her respond, a tiny wave of energy that pulsed outward like ripples in a pond. It was faint but undeniable. A gentle glow began to radiate from her body, soft and warm, as if the light itself had chosen to nestle inside her. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The alien's compound eyes widened in disbelief, and whispers filled the air. Some council members leaned closer, their previous amusement replaced by cautious curiosity. Even the queen, regal and composed, could not hide a flicker of astonishment. "It glows," she whispered. "Yes," Leora said softly. "It is alive." The impossible begins quietly, like a single spark in darkness. But from that spark, life grows. A ripple of tension spread through the room. The younger aliens murmured excitedly to one another, unable to contain their wonder. The elders exchanged looks, some frowning in skepticism, others blinking slowly as if trying to comprehend what they were seeing. The once laughing council now faced the undeniable truth. Something extraordinary was happening. The glow intensified, delicate yet powerful, wrapping around Leora like a soft cloak of light. She smiled gently, feeling the life inside her respond to her touch, to her breath, to her unwavering belief. The court had mocked her, dismissed her, even questioned her worth. Yet here she stood, small and fragile by their standards. And still she had begun to prove the impossible. The queen stood silently for a moment, studying Leora. Her voice, when it finally came, was quieter, filled with awe rather than scorn. "You carry a spark no science has ever measured." "How?" Leora met her gaze steadily. "It is not science that defines life, Your Majesty. It is hope, it is courage. It is the will to nurture something, even when everyone doubts you. You may not understand it yet, but it is real. A soft murmur of agreement spread through the younger council members. They had seen countless experiments, countless failures, yet none had created something so pure, so alive, so undeniable. Leora's presence, her calm strength, and the miracle growing within her had changed the room. For the first time, laughter was absent from the court. It was replaced with a quiet awe, a respectful silence that filled the grand chamber. The impossible had arrived not with thunder or fire, but with a gentle, glowing heartbeat inside a human woman. And in that moment, Leora felt a quiet certainty deep in her soul. This was only the beginning. The court had begun to see, just a flicker for now, what humans were truly capable of. And one day, the full miracle would shine so brightly that even the oldest and most skeptical among them could not ignore it. Days passed since the first glow had appeared, and the alien court could no longer ignore Leora. The whispers that once carried mockery now trembled with curiosity. Council members walked through the crystal halls, glancing at her cautiously, some even stopping to study the subtle radiance that seemed to follow her like a living shadow. The impossible was no longer a distant concept, it was growing inside a human woman, and the court could feel its quiet pull. "You have changed," one of the younger council members said softly to another. "The human. She carries something even we cannot measure." The older members frowned, their skepticism still strong, but even they could not deny what their eyes showed. Leora moved through the court with calm grace, her presence soft but undeniable. She did not need to speak loudly or gesture dramatically. Every step, every breath, every gentle smile carried a strength that no alien weapon or device could match. Leora noticed the subtle shift too. Eyes that had once rolled with laughter now lingered a moment longer. Voices that had whispered mockery now whispered questions, hesitant and uncertain. Some younger aliens began to follow her into the gardens, observing in silence as she meditated, touched her stomach, and hummed quietly to the life inside. Even the queen, regal and formidable, began to show signs of unease. She no longer dismissed Leora outright, no longer spoke with sharp tones. Instead, she asked questions, careful, measured questions that revealed a flicker of genuine curiosity. "How does the spark respond to you?" she asked one day, her compound eyes narrowing slightly, but with no trace of ridicule. "How do you nurture it so?" Leora looked at her gently. "I do not control it," she said. "I only listen. I nurture it with patience and care, with hope, with love." The queen did not reply immediately. She studied the human, trying to understand what it was about Leora that caused the impossible to grow so quietly, so steadily inside her. And slowly, the queen began to understand. Strength was not always measured in size or power. Sometimes it came from patience. Sometimes it came from courage that refused to bend to ridicule. Sometimes it came from love so deep that it could defy even centuries of doubt. The other council members began to notice too. Whispers spread through the court like fire in dry grass. "She glows brighter every day. She does not falter under our judgment." Even the queen, she watches her with respect. Leora, however, did not let the admiration or curiosity distract her. She continued her quiet routine, meditating in the gardens, speaking softly to the life within her, carrying herself with calm dignity. Every day, she reminded herself that the miracle was not yet complete. The life inside her was growing, yes, but the true power of hope was only revealed when the world finally acknowledged it. And slowly, the world around her began to change. The laughter of the court had disappeared. Where once there had been mockery, there was now attention, cautious and respectful. The younger aliens, once skeptical, now watched with awe. Even the elders, whose voices had once carried harsh judgment, were forced to acknowledge the undeniable truth. The human carried something extraordinary. One evening, as Leora sat beneath the glowing trees of the gardens, she felt a wave of quiet pride. The court's laughter had faded. Doubt was still present, but it had softened, replaced by something else: curiosity, respect, and the first seeds of belief. She placed her hands gently on her stomach and whispered, "We are not alone in this. You and I, we are stronger than they know. And soon, they will see." For the first time, she allowed herself a small smile. The impossible was no longer mocked. It was noticed. And in that small recognition, Leora found a quiet, fierce hope that the miracle was no longer hers alone. It belonged, in a way, to everyone who would witness it. The day had come. The air in the alien court felt different, charged with anticipation. Leora walked through the grand hall with quiet confidence. her hands resting lightly on her stomach. The glow she carried had grown brighter over the weeks, subtle yet undeniable, radiating warmth and life that seemed to touch everyone in the chamber. The council waited in silence, a mixture of curiosity, tension, and awe filling the space where laughter once reigned. The queen rose from her throne, her many eyes fixed on the human woman before her. "Show us," she commanded, her voice steady but tinged with unspoken wonder. "Show us the miracle you claim to bear." Liara's lips curved into a gentle smile. She lowered herself onto a smooth, polished platform in the center of the chamber, closing her eyes and taking a deep, steadying breath. The life within her responded immediately, pulsing with a rhythm that seemed to reach outward, filling the hall with a soft golden glow. It was no longer a faint spark. It was a small living heartbeat that radiated pure energy, a light that no alien had ever witnessed before. Gasps echoed through the court. The council members, once so quick to mock her, were now silent, their compound eyes wide with disbelief. Even the younger members who had begun to respect her earlier could not have imagined the brilliance now emanating from Liara. The elders, who had been certain of her failure, now leaned forward. Unable to look away, the queen approached slowly, her regal composure faltering under the weight of awe. It lives," she whispered. You have created life where we thought it impossible." "Yes," Liara said softly, her voice carrying calm authority. "Life does not always follow the rules you understand. It is not bound by science, by expectation, or by doubt. It is born from hope, courage, and care. And it grows when we nurture it, even when the world laughs at us." The chamber was quiet, the kind of silence that comes before history is made. The glow pulsed gently, illuminating every face in the court. Aliens leaned closer, unable to contain their wonder, whispering to each other in amazement. She carries what we sought for centuries. No experiment could achieve this. Even the queen. She is speechless." Liara opened her eyes and looked around the hall, meeting each gaze with quiet strength. "This is only the beginning," she said. "The life inside me is small, but it is powerful. It will grow, and it will remind you that hope is never wasted and courage is never in vain." A ripple of emotion swept through the court. The alien council, who had once laughed at her, bowed their heads in respect, not because they were commanded, but because they could not deny the truth before them. They had seen the impossible, and it had been delivered by a fragile human woman. The queen knelt slowly, a gesture unprecedented in the history of their civilization. Her voice was soft but reverent. We underestimated humans. We judged them by what we saw, not by what they were capable of." Liara placed her hands gently over her stomach once more. The glow pulsed with life, a warm and steady light that seemed to carry the energy of generations. She smiled softly, feeling the quiet triumph of patience, love, and resilience. The court had finally begun to see what she always knew. Humanity was more than fragile. Humanity was capable of miracles. In that moment, the alien court understood something profound. Strength was not always measured in power or age. It was measured in courage, in hope, in the quiet determination to nurture life even when the world refused to believe. And Liara, small and human as she was, had proven that this strength could shine brighter than any crystal palace or centuries of alien knowledge. The glow faded slightly as Liara stood, but the impact remained. The court would never forget the day a human woman showed them the impossible. Not with weapons or science, but with the quiet miracle of life. The glow in the chamber had softened, leaving behind a warm, lingering light that filled every corner of the alien court. Liara stood tall, her hands resting over her stomach, the tiny miracle she carried now undeniable to every eye in the hall. Silence stretched across the grand chamber, a silence of awe and realization. The court that had once laughed at her, mocked her, and dismissed her, now bowed not out of fear, but out of respect and understanding. The queen approached her slowly, each step measured, her many eyes reflecting a mixture of astonishment and reverence. "You have shown us what we did not believe possible," she said softly. "You, a human, fragile and small, have carried life where we thought only centuries of effort could succeed. You have reminded us of the power we forgot." Leora smiled gently, a warmth in her chest that went beyond the glow of the miracle she carried. "Life," she said quietly, "does not belong to the strong alone. Courage, hope, and love can create the impossible, even in the smallest hearts. Humanity is not the weakest. Humanity is capable of miracles." A murmur spread through the council. The younger members whispered among themselves, admiration replacing the skepticism that had once filled their words. The elders, usually rigid and unyielding, bowed their heads slowly, acknowledging not only Leora but the truth she represented. For the first time in history, humans were not seen as fragile, short-lived, or insignificant. They were seen as resilient, courageous, and capable of shaping the future in ways the aliens had never imagined. The queen knelt, her grand form seeming smaller in humility than Leora ever felt. "We have judged too quickly. We have overlooked the strength that comes quietly, the power that grows with care and patience. Humans, your kind holds more than we knew." Leora placed her hands on her stomach again, feeling the pulse of life within. It was a small, fragile heartbeat, yet it carried the weight of hope, determination, and the future. She had come to the court expecting mockery, expecting doubt. Instead, she had found recognition not just for herself, but for all of humanity. Around her, the chamber seemed to breathe differently. The floating orbs shimmered softly, reflecting the golden light of the miracle, as if the palace itself acknowledged the change. Even the walls, ancient and unyielding, seemed to hold a trace of reverence. For centuries, the court had underestimated humans. For centuries, they had laughed at the fragile. But no longer. "You have changed our world," whispered one council member, barely above a breath. "Not with force, not with weapons, not with power, but with courage and love." Leora nodded, her eyes shining with quiet pride. "That is what humanity carries," she said. "Not dominance, not fear, but the ability to nurture, to hope, and to persist when all others doubt. That is our true strength." The court stood in silence for a long moment, absorbing the truth. Then, slowly, the queen raised her voice so all could hear. "Let it be known across this world and beyond, humans are not weak. Humans are capable of miracles, patience, and courage beyond measure. We honor the human who has shown us the impossible." Leora felt a warmth in her heart deeper than any glow. She had come alone, fragile and uncertain, to a court that had mocked her very existence. And now she left as a symbol, not just of hope, but of humanity itself. As she walked from the grand hall, the council watching in silent respect, she whispered softly to the life within her, "We did it. They see us now. They understand. And one day, they will see even more." For the first time in her life, Leora felt the full weight of pride, not for herself, but for all humanity. The fragile had been honored. The small had proven their strength. And the court that had laughed now bowed to the quiet, undeniable power of courage, love, and life itself. The impossible had been made real. Humanity had been seen. And the world, alien and human alike, would never forget the name Leora.